So, all right. Hello once again to all of you, all of our faithful listeners out there across the Cotton Belt. It is time once again for the Cotton Companion podcast. We know that y'all are tuning in from California all the way to the Carolinas, and we are glad to have you back with us for this, the 21st episode of the world famous Cotton Companion podcast. Our podcast is now old enough to go down to Bill Street and celebrate its 21st birthday tonight, Jim, if it so wanted to. You have just heard me reference my partner in crime, Mr. Jim Steadman. He is back with us, back from yet another summer 2016 road trip. Jim, you did a little work and a little play this time, isn't that right?
That's exactly right, Beck, and I don't really think it matters whether it was work or play. All I can tell you is it was really, really hot everywhere I was last week, from the from Central Arkansas all the way up into the Midwest.
Yeah, I agree. I was actually going to mention that here in the run-up as I'm introducing our episode. I know you were up at the Southern Cotton Ginners
Summer meeting,
which was, where was it this time?
Little Rock this year.
Little Rock. Okay, so I was kind of headed in that way. I went across the bridge. I was over at Bay, Arkansas. As you know, midweek last week, I went to a little Syngenta field day, great field day, caught up with those guys over there. But it was just one of these days where, my goodness, it was, felt like it was in the triple digits out there, and it's so hot, and you have hot air moving in. We're in this time of year where you have like a daily, just afternoon, just thunderstorm. The analogy I'm wanting to use here, my farming stepdad always used about a cow urinating on a flat rock is the way I would put it. It was it was be how I described this in the most G-rated way possible, this rain that came up as I was over in Bay, Arkansas last week. But it was it's hot out there. Long story short, it's that time of year. We're getting these daily afternoon rains here in the Mid-South. I feel like the guys down there in the Mississippi Delta and over in the Arkansas Delta feel like they could get one more good rain. This crop will have just about made it. I think it's been a pretty good year as far as the rains that have been around.
That's right, and it's one of the things we'll talk about here in just a few minutes when we get into some of our news items. But, boy, there are some places over in West Texas that would be happy to take some of this rain off of us, off our hands right now.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
They really need at least one, maybe two more good rains.
Yeah, so that's a little preview of what Jim's going to talk about. We're going to start today, as we always do, here in a second, with Jim leading us through the most prevalent news stories of the day in and around the Cotton Belt. And for this week, for this podcast, that's definitely going to include a crop progress update, which Jim is going to bring us up to speed on. He's going to talk a little bit about the WASDE report, which he can tell you what that means. I cannot. But it's obviously an important economic report that came out last week. And then we've had a flurry of little news tidbits over the past week about all of these potential ag companies the various mergers that may or may not be taking place that will impact the cotton market. As you all are no doubt aware, there have been some corporate flirtations between Monsanto and Bayer, and between Dow and DuPont, and what's the other?
Syngenta and ChemChina.
There you go.
And there may be some others, as far as we know, and nobody knows about at this point.
Who knows? So Jim's going to bring us up to speed on all that. And then, after that, while he was there in Little Rock last week with the Southern Cotton Ginners Association, Jim caught up with none other than the NCC president and CEO, Mr. Gary Adams. It's a big interview that he hauled in for the Cotton Companion this week. Jim, can you just briefly give me the Cliff's Notes on what y'all talked about?
Well, Gary was over there as part of the presentation with the program, basically providing the economic impact or economic report to the group that was assembled there. And it's some of the things we talked about in the interview, and we'll get into it. But he obviously provided his thoughts on what had happened in the market since the WASDE report came out. But basically, he was also talking about the plans that the council and the rest of the cotton industry has to continue to seek opportunities for cottonseed. It was great to have the cost sharing program for ginning, but that program ends next week, and there are still some opportunities that are being pursued at this point. So we talked a little bit about that. and also about some of the market and political challenges ahead, not only here in the U.S., but also from other countries. So it's about a good 10 and a half minute interview. Gary's always very eloquent and covers a lot of things very, very well. So I hope everybody will stay tuned to listen.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. Gary's always a good interview. I've just taken off one set of my headphones here to confirm that, I'm not just hearing things. Guys, if y'all don't know, we share a wall with the dentist's office here in our Cordova office. And
which I guess is better than working out of a garage.
That's true, yes.
At least we have air conditioning.
So at the, highly world-famous and high-tech Cotton Companion studio that we're operating in shares a wall directly with this dentist office, and we think they may have gotten into the laughing gas over there this afternoon because I can hear them chatting and laughing. So if y'all are picking that up, don't be alarmed.
At least there's no screaming.
Yeah, they don't have the drills going.
No.
So there's one silver lining. Anyhow, we need to head to break. On the flip side of this thing, Jim will be bringing you our news segment, all the news of the day. So just stick around with us, and we will be right back.
Cotton Grower Magazine has the honor of saluting exceptional sacrifice and contribution to the cotton industry through our annual Cotton Grower Cotton Achievement Award. Since 1970, Cotton Grower has handed out this distinguished honor to one individual who demonstrates tireless dedication to the cotton industry through involvement, innovation, and leadership in those issues that have a large impact on U.S. cotton as a whole. Achievement Award winners are chosen after extensive research and thoughtful input from around the industry. Cotton Grower offers sincere gratitude to Case IH and to Delta Pine for sponsoring the Cotton Grower Cotton Achievement Award. In joining the effort to recognize and honor industry leaders, these companies demonstrate their devotion to the cotton industry and their desire to see growers succeed.
Welcome back to the Cotton Companion. As Beck said, we're going to get into some of the newsy items impacting the market in the industry right now. We're going to start, as we always have during the production season, with the latest USDA crop progress report. This would be the report as of July 24th. And they're still measuring three different attributes for this crop: squaring, boll set, and then overall crop condition. So let's start with squaring. Right now, as of the 24th, it looked like 85% of the crop had squared. That was up 8% over the past week. Realistically, we've got this crop is made at this point. Every state, I think with the exception of maybe Oklahoma and Kansas, which were later planted cotton, is in the high 80s to 90% squaring numbers. We've got 7 states that are sitting at or above their 5-year average. So I think it's safe to say that we're definitely into the fruiting stage, and that things are progressing well. When you get into boll set at this point, we're looking at 46% of the crop is setting bolls right now. That's 18% up from the previous week. Again, 7 states are running ahead of their 5-year average on that, led by, if you believe the numbers, Arkansas with 97% of the crop showing boll set at this point. It's a little surprising, but normally I would figure Arizona would be way out ahead, but nope. It's right here in the Mid-South, Arkansas this year.
We don't think that's the USDA getting those two state abbreviations mixed up?
Or if they transpose numbers. I guess we'll find out next week when maybe it's 79% instead of 97%. We'll get back to you on that one.
I have full confidence in the USDA.
Oh, we always have full confidence in the USDA.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Cotton condition at this point, you're starting to see the impact of the high temperatures and the lack of water in certain areas. For this past week, we're looking at 35% of the crop, and this is belt wide. 35% of the crop is rated fair. 52% is rated good to excellent, which is still, that's a high number for this time of year. 13% is rated poor to very poor, and as you would expect, Texas leads the way in terms of the lower conditions, although their other ratings are in pretty good shape, primarily because of needing some rain and needing some extra moisture in certain parts of the state. Now, as we understand, harvest has begun down in South Texas. The early reports out of that area are very, very promising in terms of yield. So that will hopefully get the season off to a really good start. And then again, these are things that USDA looks at as they look at their monthly reports, which we're going to shift right over to. The July 12th WASDE report, and I've got to make sure I get this correct. It's the World Agriculture Supply and Demand Estimate.
Yeah, World Agriculture
report.
Supply Demand Estimate. That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
I had it.
Yeah, I think between both of us, we probably would have come up with it.
No, I had no clue. Go for it. Keep going.
Let's just say over the last few months, this report has been really kind of a non-event. The numbers really haven't changed one way or the other. They would go up and they would go down, but for the most part, they were going sideways in terms of production, in terms of export numbers, and particularly in terms of world carryover and supply. The July report, as our friend Dr. Don Shirley over at University of Georgia described it, was an unexpected gift, and he basically calls it Christmas in July. For the cotton industry. After the report came out, cotton prices finally made that move out of that 64 to 66 cent range all the way up to 74, 75 cents. And that was in one, pretty much closed limit up for about 2 or 3 days. That has been a great surprise. And here's the reason why. And a lot of economists are just sitting there still shaking their heads going, this is wonderful. We can't believe this. Just looking at some of the numbers in there, USDA increased U.S. exports for the 2015 crop year. This is last year. Bumped that up 200,000 bales. They are now projecting this year's crop, the 2016 crop, at 15.8 million bales. That's up 1 million bales, and that's based on the acreage number that they released in June of 10 million acres, which, as we've discussed before, may or may not be real. We'll find out as we get into some of the reports from some of the months ahead.
A lot of folks around the Cotton Belt kind of raised an eyebrow
Right.
at that number.
Right. Right now they've raised U.S. exports for the 2016 year, up 1 million bales. They're saying world beginning stocks for 2016 have been lowered by 2 million bales. Primarily due to revisions in production and use for the soon-to-be ending 2015 crop year. World production went down 620,000 bales. Some of that we've known about with reduced acres in China, Pakistan, India, and I think Brazil also. And on top of that, world use, or basically demand, went up 1 million bales, which is a pretty significant number. This is really the first real increase in use that the industry has seen since 2012. So that was really a big trigger for the price movement. That also takes the projected world ending stocks for the 2016 year down 3.5 million bales, excuse me, and it just basically had a huge impact on the market. When you look at some of the other results on this, in fact, I checked the cotton prices before we walked in here to record, and right now, today, of course, all the action is still on the December 2016 crop. It's still, the price today is sitting at 70. Well, what was it? 73 and 3 quarters, which is a remarkable increase over what we're seeing a month ago.
Yeah, a month ago. I mean, for the past 2 years, hadn't it been?
Yeah,
truly, I forget. It's been stagnant for so long. I forget.
We were actually kind of getting pretty ho-hum about it. It's like, I'm really tired of bringing you this news again.
Right.
But here we are. We're still in the 60s.
We could just play the replay of the previous week for the past year,
That's right. So, everybody is thrilled. It's sort of like a nice, fresh air in the market at this point. Certainly when I was in the meeting in Little Rock last week, the optimism had certainly increased a little bit. at that point. Obviously, it's still too early to tell, and as you'll hear in the discussions with Gary Adams, there's still some other factors out there that could, potentially pull that price back down. And in fact, when you look at some of the information from other economists in the market, they're expecting a current trading range to be basically right now a 20-cent range between 65 and 85 cents, but a more realistic range, a 12-cent range between 68 cents and 80 cents. But still, that is a tremendous improvement over where we've been for the last couple of years.
Again, we know it's not dollar cotton, but it's the fact that we have been stuck looking at a number that starts with 6 for umpteen weeks in a row. Any improvement on that is truly just a breath of fresh air, and we see it with the folks you and I interact with in the field. I see it on social media. There's new energy, and I know a lot of y'all, actually if you listen to this podcast you probably don't, but a lot of the farmers that we run into say, oh, you tweeted, kind of frowned upon. But when good news like this hits, we see how many of our farmers really are engaged, and they are, Facebook and Twitter and everything else, letting us know that they're breathing a sigh of relief. It's welcome news.
Well, and anytime the market makes a jump like that, obviously there were tons of rumors flying around in those first 2 to 3 days after the report came out, and the market reacted. I was hearing rumors. None of these, were substantiated by any means, but the prices had jumped into the 80s, 80-cent range, and that somebody had actually sold cotton for $1. And there's no way to back that up at this point. I think a lot of it is, was just excitement and overreaction and wishful thinking all kind of rolled together. But the reality is the market has moved.
Yeah.
And it has moved up, and we'll just kind of see what happens. Obviously, we'll get new numbers in August. I think a lot of the economists are kind of sitting back and waiting for those numbers to see if everything is still holding, if the same patterns are still there. Then I think they're going to basically say, thank you USDA, you've opened the gates and the bulls are running again.
Yeah. A little anecdote. I was over last week at I can't even remember if I told you about this. At the American Cotton Shippers here in Memphis each summer, they run an International Cotton Institute, and they bring in all these bright young folks who work in the cotton industry, a lot of merchants, traders, people whose families run big shipping and mills and things. I mean, kids from all around the world, a lot of them Ivy League educated, very smart, much smarter than myself. I'll come to this school for 6 or 7 weeks, and basically what AXA, Mr. Bill Griffin over there, has them do is he splits them up into groups, and they all act as like a trading co-op, I don't know what you would call them, a group of traders, and they decide, what they're going to do, buy, sell, and it's, of course, monopoly money. He gives them, so many dollars of monopoly money that they start with, and they had all been making a steady profit because the market had been so predictable for the 5 weeks that they had been at this school, and then the week before graduation,
everything blew up.
All of their groups went belly up because this was so out of the blue, and they were all down in the mouth about it. Of course, they all passed and came away with a wealth of knowledge about how the market works. But
they will never play Monopoly again.
Yeah,
will they?
Yeah. I think that they got a real world.
They got real world Monopoly going now.
Yeah. So anyhow,
welcome back to Boardwalk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, do not pass go.
Just a couple other items that we want to talk about briefly. It's summer. The National Cotton Council has its Producer Information Exchange program, or as affectionately known in the industry as the PI Tours, going. These are sponsored by Beck through a grant to the Cotton Foundation. This is the 28th year that the PI program has been in place. It helps basically it helps participants boost overall marketing operation efficiency by gaining perspectives in things such as land preparation, planting, fertilization, pest control, irrigation, harvesting, and seeing things that their peers are doing in other parts of the country using current technology. So basically, what it comes down to is you get groups of farmers from each of the 4 regions of the Cotton Belt, and they travel to another area of the Cotton Belt to spend a week touring and talking and visiting and seeing what's happening in other parts of the area. Right now, the first tour happened in mid-July, where a group of Mid-South producers spent a week over in North and South Carolina looking at operations over in the Southeast. A week later, the group of Southeast growers came to the Mid-South and spent a week, primarily down in the Mississippi Delta and Louisiana, after starting here in Memphis for a day or so. The third tour took 11 growers from the Southwest out to California's San Joaquin Valley, which will be a totally different experience for a lot of those guys. And the fourth and final tour will come up in mid-August, when a group of Western producers come to Texas. And from what I understand, that week-long tour will take them down into that coastal Bend area, where they'll see operations over around Corpus and over in that area, as well as up on the high plains around Lubbock. So it's a great program. The growers gain quite a bit out of it, obviously not just in terms of education, but also in terms of building relationships with growers in other parts of the country and sharing information. So,
have you ever tagged along with
I have not tagged along
Yeah.
on one of these. It's never seemed to fit our summer schedule,
Yeah.
which is basically a couple days in the office and then off on field tours.
Yeah.
So
I did it. The only reason I ask, I did it a couple years in a row when I first came on about 8 years ago, and it's truly a neat tour. I would encourage y'all, if you were involved with the council at all, and big props to Bayer for making it possible. It's not cheap to get everybody to play mixer with growers all around the country, but it's a great experience. I mean, we see it, Jim and I, because it's part of our job to get out on someone else's farm. I wonder how many cotton producers, you'll take a vacation. I'm not saying that growers aren't really well traveled, but how often are you out on a guy's farm who's from 12 hours from you to see, and what we see is these 4 regions of the Cotton Belt. It is a big old cotton belt, and conditions and circumstances on farms are so varied from coast to coast. It's a lot of times you wonder how
we all produce the same thing.
Right. You wonder if this is the same country. I mean, if if you were to take an alien and put him on a farm in Idalou, Texas, and then bring him over and put him on a farm down in Tifton, Georgia, he would think he was not into the same country. Or anyhow, I'm rambling here, but the point is, it's truly a great program to get out there and see. Learn a lot. You can learn from the challenges that your counterparts deal with, and probably take home a tip or two that can help you be a better farmer in the process.
Right, and also to be sure, this is not the only exchange program the council does. This is the only one that's exclusively related to cotton. Earlier this summer, they also had a group of growers from the South, primarily cotton producers, who traveled to Idaho as part of another exchange program that the council does in cooperation with some of the ag organizations in the Midwest. So it truly is a look at a totally different world and a totally different group of crops and things like that. So this was the year for the southern growers to go north, in this case up to the Pacific Northwest. Next year it'll be time for the Midwest growers to come back to the Cotton Belt, which is always an entertaining experience.
Yeah, just as fun to play host. I think that they rely on their farmers to play host as much as they ask them to get on the road.
Yeah,
so.
From what I understand, they really like looking at the cotton pickers.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Okay, last item. As Beck mentioned, there's been some news over the last week or so over some of the potential mergers and changes in the ag industry. Dow and DuPont seem to be rolling right along toward getting their deal squared away by the end of this year. Last week, the shareholders of both DuPont and Dow Chemical voted to approve all of the proposals necessary to complete the merger of the two companies. And they're expecting this whole merger transaction to close sometime before the end of this year, pending, of course, all closing conditions and regulatory approvals. As soon as the merger is finished, then they'll start working to separate into 3 independent businesses, one of which will be agriculture, to basically operate independent from the other groups. All of them will be publicly traded companies under the umbrella of DowDuPont. So that one seems to be moving right along and moving very smoothly at this point. The other one that people have been watching is the Monsanto and Bayer. And the only way I can describe this is they continue to dance with each other. Bayer came in, made an initial offer to Monsanto, which Monsanto rejected. They upped that offer, I think, to $125 a share. Monsanto's response was no, but keep talking. Now there are some analysts that are looking at this potential merger saying it may take $140 a share to make the deal work. But Bayer is starting to get a little bit of shareholder pushback, not only in terms of why are we doing this? We need to focus on other parts of our business. But there's also some shareholders, from what I understand, who just say, just go for it and let's make it a hostile bid at this point. Meanwhile, Monsanto has also, from what we understand, initiated talks with BASF. So who knows what's going to happen with this one at this point? Something's going to happen. But I don't think anybody is willing to stick their neck out and say what it will be or when things will happen. As far as Syngenta and ChemChina, just a quick statement from both companies last week. Things seem to be moving along smoothly there. There's optimism from both companies that this deal will be approved by the end of the year as well. So that seems to be the hot stove items in terms of what companies are doing. Obviously, it's not only hot stove from that perspective, but certainly the companies are moving ahead and continuing to do what they're doing. We are our field travel schedule is heating up again, as well as we'll start hitting field days both for multiple companies here over the next month and a half.
Heating up literally and
yes.
Metaphorically.
Yes, absolutely. So anyway, that's all the news we have for this point. Again, stay tuned for the for the interview with Gary Adams. I think you'll find it very, very interesting.
Indeed, yeah. We will. If you'll hang around through this quick break, we will be right back with you with Mr. Gary Adams, CEO and President of the National Cotton Council. So stick with us. We'll be right back.
I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas today at the Southern Cotton Ginners Summer Meeting and visiting with Gary Adams, who's President and CEO of the National Cotton Council. Gary was in as part of the program this morning, talking about some of the cotton economic situations and also looking at the current state of the cottonseed designation and some other programs. Gary, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Just sort of getting into things, I think probably over the last week and a half has probably been some of the most encouraging news the cotton industry's had in quite some time after USDA's supply-demand report came out. From your perspective, from the council's perspective, things like this is obviously good news. It's been good news for prices.
Well, it is, and certainly when you just look at the financial pressure that we've seen, particularly for producers dealing with high cost of production and with weak market prices, it has. It's been an encouragement for them to see some strength and some rally in prices, and then we've added about 8 cents to the futures contract since that USDA report came out, and really prices trading at some of the highest levels we've seen probably in a couple of years now.
Based on some of these numbers that we've seen, is it too early to say we've turned the corner, that maybe we're starting to climb out of this hole we've been in for the last couple years?
Well, hopefully it does maybe signal that the market that we've gone through recently, hopefully we've established a bottom there. I do think there's a couple of things we have to be cautious about, and whether or not we fully turned a corner is up in the air, because a couple of things that played into the market optimism is USDA made some adjustments in the expected production for some countries such as India and Pakistan. So that was part of it, was just the expectation that we may not see as much cotton produced in those countries. And we always have to remind ourselves it's still early in the growing season, just like it is here in the United States. A lot can happen between now and harvest. So I do throw at least that one caveat out, that we've got to watch how those crops develop internationally.
Well, and I think in terms of your presentation, always everything seems to hinge back on China and their programs at this point. It looks like the reserve sale program has gone reasonably well for them, and that's been part of the cause for optimism and some of the I guess the uptake numbers or usage numbers. Correct?
Yeah, it does appear. We've now. I guess we're about 3 months into China doing those auctions, and they've been fairly structured and on an orderly basis. And for the most part, what has been offered has actually been purchased either by mills or traders that are going to sell to mills at a later date. And that usually that's been at prices ranging from anywhere from the low 80s to the low 90-cent range. So hopefully that shows that there's some demand by China's textile industry for cotton. It's just that, unfortunately, with their cotton moving into reserves, and then with China having limited the amount of import quota they announced, that I think some of the Chinese mills were a little bit starved for cotton. So hopefully there's some demand that will continue to build as we go forward. Polyester competition is always a concern for us, so that's one of the factors we're going to watch as well.
Okay. I noticed in your presentation you're talking about, I guess, Vietnam has now become our largest export market, followed closely by Turkey. Obviously, there are probably some concerns with Turkey at this point following some of the recent political issues there. How could this possibly impact some of our export opportunities?
Yeah, and I think on Turkey there are concerns there. Obviously, the one thing that we know in regard to the Turkish market is we went through an anti-dumping investigation with Turkey. We know there was a lot of political motivations around that investigation. It concluded in April, and as a result of that investigation, Turkey now imposes a duty of 3% on any U.S. cotton that goes into Turkey, and that there is no duty imposed on any cotton from another country. So automatically that's putting us at a bit of a disadvantage. I think the other thing we have to watch for going forward is just the uncertainty there with their political situation. Hopefully that will find some resolution and doesn't disrupt the trade between the two countries. But Turkey's a key market, so we always are going to watch that. Vietnam is our largest market. They've been a strong growth market. And I think they're poised to continue to be a growth market for the United States. We see a lot of investment going into Vietnam in new facilities, and some of that is Chinese mills or South Korean mills that are investing in Vietnam and building plants. And I think a lot of them are planning on a future for Vietnam as Vietnam being one of the signatory countries to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that there is some potential growth for Vietnam's textile industry if and when that's eventually ratified. So there's some, I think, a growth market there, but TPP's fate is still not fully settled either.
And particularly as we're moving into an election year, and who knows what whoever the new administration ends up being. Who knows what these partnership situations are going to look like. Looking at the again from the U.S. perspective, let's shift to cottonseed for just a minute. I think there was a really nice, strong attempt early this year to have cottonseed designated as another oilseed. It garnered lots of interest and support, sort of bipartisan support, which from a Congress that has not been known for that for quite a while. But obviously was in the end was kind of stymied by Secretary Vilsack's judgment or on the program. That did though lead to this to the Jennings cost share program. The sign-up deadline for that program is August 5th. It's rapidly approaching. Do you have any indications on how that program is going so far?
Well, I'll say. Too, just kind of as a thank you to Secretary Vilsack and USDA. Yes, we didn't get to where we wanted to be on the cottonseed designation with the Secretary, but the industry is very appreciative for USDA pushing forward with this cost share program and being able to implement that program in a timely manner, because it was announced on the 6th of June. Sign up started on the 20th of June, and really for the most part, we haven't heard a lot of glitches or problems in the countryside. Once growers started going in shortly after the 20th, and they received a letter from USDA kind of outlining what USDA viewed as the certified acreage that a grower had for 2015, so that establishes the basis for payments. We understand that growers have been already receiving payments from USDA, so USDA is already issuing those funds, and that's very encouraging to see. So we haven't heard a lot of glitches at all in the process. But what we don't know at this point, obviously, is we don't know how many growers have made it into their FSA office yet to take care of that, signing up for that program. So. Just in the strongest possible terms, we are encouraging growers to make sure they take care of this before the August 5th deadline, and hopefully get everybody in that is eligible and get them signed up so they can receive this assistance.
Right. As we understand it, there are no extensions on this. August 5th is the hard, nothing beyond that point deadline.
That is the word we have received in the very firmest terms from USDA, and we have tried to convey that to our growers. It's August 5th. Be in and enroll by August 5th, or you're left out of the program. So make sure you make it happen by August 5th.
Okay. Beyond August 5th, still looking at cottonseed, I think there's obviously the industry still feels there's some value in it as another oilseed designation. What's next on that legislative front, looking ahead?
And you're right. The industry does still feel like a cottonseed designation would provide some much needed support on an ongoing basis, because the cost share program is a one-time assistance, and it's grateful to have it, but it is a one-time program. So as we look beyond, and with still some challenging economics in front of us, we see that cottonseed as an opportunity, but we also understand that if USDA is not going to take that initiative to do it through the discretionary authority, then there's got to be a legislative change. And so that's, while we don't know what a vehicle would be, we certainly are looking for those opportunities to try to come up with something. We know that Chairman Conaway is interested in trying to and being very helpful in this process. So I think we're going to look if there's a way in a legislative process sometime through this year, be ready to act on that front.
Okay, sounds great. I know that's good news for the industry, and I know many of our listeners will be happy to hear that. Gary, thank you. I know you're a busy guy. You've come in. You've got to head back to Memphis at this point to get back into. I guess the rest of the business of the council. Thank you for joining us today on the Cotton Companion. We certainly appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jim. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back right after this short break.
So all right, that'll just about do it for the 21st installment of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to thank you sincerely for joining us once again. If you like what you're hearing, by all means, tell your buddies about us. Let them know that you are being entertained and informed by the Cotton Companion podcast from Cotton Grower. If they say, well, okay, how do I access that podcast? You can tell them to get to us through 3 easy ways. The first is to simply go to cottongrower.com, go to the search bar at the top of the homepage and search for Cotton Companion, or type Cotton Companion in that search bar, and it should take you to a landing page with each of our various 21 now podcast episodes located somewhere therein. The second way, you can subscribe to our channel on iTunes. If you do have an iPhone, if you are knowledgeable about how to operate your apps and whatnot, then simply go to the iTunes and search for the Cotton Companion podcast. You can subscribe. It's free and easy, and it's an easy way to receive this podcast directly onto your phone the day that it goes live. So that's a very good way to find us. If you do that, please go ahead, subscribe, and leave us a rating. Let us know what you think of our pod. The third and best way, in my humble opinion, to reach the Cotton Companion podcast is to sign yourself up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-newsletter. Jim here works hard each and every week to pack that thing with all of the relevant news of the day. And they hit your mailbox, your email inbox, each Tuesday morning like clockwork. Occasionally during the fall months when things are picking up out there in the Cotton Belt, they will be reaching your office your inbox on Thursdays as well. You can subscribe to the e-newsletter by simply going to www.cottongrower.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and you'll find a link there to subscribe to our e-newsletter. It's easy peasy. Also, make sure you're following us on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook you can find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine. We have about 1,750 followers and likers, respectively, on those two social media platforms. So
and we'd love to have more.
Yeah, we'd love to have 1751. We want you to be that guy or that gal. So my point there was, you won't be alone. There are bukus of your neighbors and fellow cotton producers and cotton professionals in this country are interacting with us via social media, and we certainly enjoy it. You guys are our best sources of info, so we love interacting with you on those platforms. We hope that you're enjoying our latest issue, which is still the June-July issue. Our next one that'll be out is another combined issue. It's the August-September issue. It will be hitting your mailboxes the first week of September, but we got some great things lined up for that one, so we hope that you are looking forward to it as much as we are. This podcast is produced by Mr. Marcus Antonelli. He works at the mothership, Meister Media Worldwide in Willoughby, Ohio. My name is Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you in 2 weeks on the next episode of The Cotton Companion. For now, on behalf of my own Cotton Companion, Jim Steadman, we wish you and your cotton farm all the best.